Thank you everyone for joining RevUp week 6. I think it's week 6. Yeah, week 6. RevUp week 6. So today we're talking about working with buyers and how to get your offer accepted. And I'm going to put a little asterisk by that because the second portion of getting your offers accepted is more evergreen, not necessarily as specific to this ridiculously hot market that we are in. So Rachel, if you would include the Tech Tuesday that we did a few weeks ago on how to get your offer accepted in a ridiculously hot market, I would really encourage you guys to watch that video if you didn't see it. We cover a lot of things there about how to write really aggressive offers, which is somewhat necessary in this market. So anyways, again, this class was made not necessarily considering the current market that we're in. So take everything with a grain of salt, but this is more evergreen and everything here is still true. Just you might have to work a little harder. So as you know, this is a 12-week program, and you don't have to necessarily have seen last week to be able to watch this week and gain a lot from it. But as I already said, today is week 6, and we're talking about working with buyers. Let's jump right in. Our learning objectives today, we're going to talk about the steps in the buyer process, buyer qualification and consultation, the art of showing homes, the purchase sale agreement concepts, buyer's market versus seller's market. We are in a seller's market, spoiler alert, getting your offers accepted. As always, we start off RevUp with an affirmation. Today's affirmation is, I know my value and only work with realistic, qualified, and motivated buyers and sellers. We're going to talk a lot about this today because this is really important. Okay, let's jump right into finding and qualifying buyers. So we've talked about this before. There you have your, what do they call it? The circles of opportunity, I think is what they call it, but you can call it whatever you want.
Spheres of influence.
Okay, that's it. Well, there's so many ways. You can call it whatever you want. Another way I heard a former real estate coach of mine describe it is like a wheel. So you have a wheel, you have the center and the outer wheel, and you have all these different spokes, right? And not one of them is more or less important than the other. They all work together, and you need to be fueling all of these in order to get buyers. So I was talking with somebody today about this. Real estate is not a to use a probably ill-timed metaphor, it's not a it's a shotgun approach, right? It's a numbers game, right? You want to have multiple ways of getting leads and be consistent with all the lead approaches that you have. And it's a numbers game. The more you do it, the more likely you are to get a buyer from it. And the reason this came up today, Aisha, who's a broker with our office, I've been trying to convince Aisha to do an open house for a while. So she finally took me up on it, and she did an open house 2 weekends ago. And one and done, she's closing tomorrow on a home that she did the open house for. That is a little lucky. And I'm not taking away from her amazing job, but it is a little lucky, right? You had to be at the open house to begin with. That's the part that that's in your control, but you can't control the buyers that come through. But that's what happens here. She got lucky with the buyer coming through on her first one, but if you don't get a buyer on your first one, which you likely won't, that doesn't mean it's not working. It's a numbers game. You have to do multiple open houses and keep following up with the leads you get from them in order to have them stick. And that goes for all of these: referrals, circle prospecting, door knocking, networking, social media, mailers, circle of influence, farming, internet, etc. You have to just continually, consistently do all this, and that's how you generate these leads.
Hey, Isaac.
Yes.
So I talked to Aisha about that open house, and she told me that, a guy came in and he was interested, and she was talking to him about it. And he was like, yeah, I think I'm going to write an offer on it. And she goes, cool. Who's going to write that offer for you? Like, she took the incentive to stick her nose out there to say, like, I'll do it. Let's do this. And if she hadn't, he might have just walked away, and she might have missed out on that client.
Love it. Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so important. Ask for the business. We talked about that a couple meetings ago, where obviously we don't want to, legally we are required to ask, are you working with a real estate broker? Or you don't have to say it exactly like that, but you have to somehow ask that question. And if they say no, they are a free agent. And that is someone you need to try and go after. So kudos to Aisha. And again, I want to be very clear. When I said she got lucky, I don't mean she got all lucky. The lucky part was just the fact that the buyer walked in who was interested in offering on the home and didn't have an agent. That was the only lucky part. Everything else that she did was spot on. And many agents would not have gotten that client because they wouldn't have asked if they were working with an agent. They wouldn't have said, well, can I be your agent? Can I write this offer for you? And then followed through. And so that's where, again, I'm not taking any credit from Aisha. She deserves all of it. So let's talk about the buyer process. This is a good slide. Maybe take a screenshot of this and save this. But this is just kind of a good slide to see the whole progression of working with a buyer. So you've got buyer qualification, followed by the consultation with your buyer. That's where you meet and talk to them and find out what they want and what they're looking for. Followed by getting them to sign a buyer's agency agreement. We've talked about this in previous meetings. You do not need a buyer's agency agreement. If you can convince your buyer to sign a buyer's agency agreement, that's a great idea because it locks them in. Showing appointments made, showings arranged, properties considered. That seems kind of redundant. Showings arranged. I think that's a mistake. Offers made and negotiated, escrow opened, the pending path, which we'll talk about in more depth, loan doc signed, escrow doc signed, funding and recording, followed by the buyer takes possession. This is kind of the whole life cycle of working with a buyer. Okay, so step one is qualify. Once you find people who are thinking of buying, you must be sure they meet the following criteria. Are they ready? Are they willing? And are they able? Okay, so what do I mean by are they ready? Can they make a move right now? Meaning, does their lease expire in 30 days or so, or close to? Do they have the financing in order? So, do they have a down payment, an earnest money deposit, money to pay for an inspection if needed, at least money to pay for an appraisal, and so on. And then willing are they motivated, right? This is much harder to figure out, but do they are they looky-loos? That's a funny term. Are they looky-loos or are they really ready to buy a home? Okay. And then able is similar to ready. Do they have credit issues? That's not necessarily your place to ask that question. In fact, you want to be really careful to not straight up ask what's your credit score, because that could be an offensive thing to ask. Have they been, but getting them in touch with a lender can be a way to figure that out. Have they been at their job long enough? Now, this is a question that's not really offensive to ask, but hey, how long have you worked where you worked? If they say, well, I just started my own online business and I don't have any, and I quit my job. You can politely at that point say, sorry, unless you have cash or a cosigner, you will not be able to qualify for a loan, but still try and get them in touch with the lender. But these are just examples, right? Are they able to buy a home? Before you put people in your, this is notes that they have that I think are important, but the idea is before you put people in your car and invest your valuable time and resources, be sure the odds that your buyer can and will buy a home are in your favor, right? Don't waste your time if they are not at least close to ready. And that's not to say don't give them the time of day. Talk to them, explain to them the process, and explain there's no point in looking at a home if you don't have a cosigner and you just started a brand new online business and you don't have consistent income and tax returns to show that, right? So I'm not saying ignore them. I'm just saying coach them and just know they're 1.5 to 2 years away. The only way to know for sure is to ask lots of questions, then give your prospect a quick mental grade, right? A, are they ready, willing, able within 30 days? B, they're ready, willing, or able, and they can probably buy in 6 months. Or C, they're more than 6 months out due to some of the things we already talked about. That's a great way to sort them also in your CRM, or if you're doing it on a spreadsheet, because frankly, you want to stay in touch with the C's and the B's, but the A's are your top priority, right? So step 1B is get them in touch with the lender. This is so important to do this really, really quickly. Again, don't waste your time. This is just about, also don't be the bad guy. Also don't take this on just yourself. If you get a lender involved, now you got two people trying to get this buyer to buy a home, right? So get them in touch with the lender. The first, be sure of correct, and then get from the lender their price range, and then what the timing is, at least as far as the lending is concerned. The next step, we're going to talk about the consultation, but from the lender's point of view, are they pre-approved? If so, how much? And are they pre-approved now, or do we still have some credit repair to work on, or whatever? So step 2 is buyer's consultation. Ideally, you want to meet in the office to be for safety reasons. Obviously, if it's someone you know well or whatever, you can meet them anywhere, and you can meet anyone anywhere. Just be cautious of that. Professionalism is you look more professional when you meet them in the office, right? You meet them in your conference room. You say, "Hey, can I get you coffee?" It just looks it looks very professional when you do that. And then you control it, right? You're getting the people to come to you, and you're in control. It reminds them of, it kind of goes back to the professionalism. It reminds them that you are a professional in your office, and you really take control of the situation. It really has a positive effect when I meet clients at the office, as opposed to at their home or at a coffee shop. Not necessary, but I definitely prefer it. So at the consultation, you're going to want to do, these are some, again, I would encourage you to take a screenshot of this, or I think I can actually share the slide with you, the whole PowerPoint, if you'd like that, because there's a lot of things here that you might want to take notes on. But step 1, we want to verify the loan. So say, okay, so you spoke with the lender told me you're approved to 350. Do you have any questions about that? But verify the loan amount, and perhaps more importantly, verify, just because you're qualified up to 350, is that the payment you want? Are you comfortable with paying, the $1,800 a month that would be associated with that 350 payment? Review the buyer's home search criteria. This is obvious, right? How many bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, etc. Really important for me. I normally have a list, and I say, okay, what are the needs and what are the wants? I want to hear about the wants. The wants are very important, but the needs are the most important, right? So if you want 4 bedrooms, but you'd be okay with 3 in case if the home's perfect and it has three rooms, that's fine. Well, then your minimum criteria is going to be 3. But that's how I do the criteria portion. I have wants and must have. And then when I set them up on an auto search online, I don't search by the wants, I search by the needs. And then we skim through and find the ones that check as many boxes as possible. Learn about your buyers, right? You're building a relationship here. This is not just a matter of, this is not just a business transaction. We've talked about this before, where what separates really successful real estate agents from agents who just make it are the ones who think of every buyer as a buyer now, a seller probably in 3, 4, 5 years, and then they're going to buy again. And also they know tons of other people who they'll refer to me. So learn about your buyers, ask them about their background, their culture, their family, their lifestyle, everything about that. It'll really help solidify that relationship with them. Introduce the buyer to your team if possible. If you're here at the office, come knock on my office and say, hey, this is Isaac Schaefer. He's my managing broker. Especially if you're a newer agent and you have that imposter syndrome where you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. They're trusting me with this huge decision. And you feel like you're struggling. Maybe bring them to meet me and say, listen, you're not just hiring me, you're hiring Isaac as well. And it's all the same price as a buyer. It's actually free because the seller pays my commission. But you're not just getting me, a new agent, you're getting me and Isaac, who's been in the business for 6 years, and we're both here together. And if there's ever any issues or anything, Isaac will be here. Maybe Sarah will be here. You can introduce her to Sarah as a transaction coordinator. Robin's our marketing director. If you're in Gig Harbor, Rachel's our agent resource specialist. You don't have to do all this, but again, it kind of shows your professionalism if you're able to show them your team. It's like what's the example? I heard this example on another podcast, but it's saying, would you feel more comfortable getting on an airplane and seeing the pilot outside filling up the airplane with gas, and then loading the luggage into the plane, and then getting on and giving people drinks, and then saying, okay, I'm going to go take off? Like that's scary, right? So if you can show them, listen, I've got a whole team of support, it makes you look so much more professional, and it makes them feel like they are just along for the ride and you've got it all handled. Not my analogy. So if you want to tease it, Rachel, okay, just okay.
Why target me?
I guess I could have targeted you or Robin. You guys give me the hardest time. Okay, educate the buyer. This is super important and a part that a lot of people skip. We know the real estate process, right? We know it like the back of our hands, and they don't, especially first-time home buyers. They have no idea. They don't know what earnest money is in most cases. They don't know, do we do the inspection or does the seller do the inspection? Oh wait, the inspection is different from the appraisal. Wait, I had to pay for an appraisal up front. That doesn't come out of my closing costs. They don't know any of this. So really consider writing out the whole process and writing like a script for yourself so that you can kind of, I like to write scripts like this as bullet points, so I can kind of check things off. There's going to be sometimes that you start explaining simple things like this to a buyer, and they're going to be like, I got it. I bought a home last year. And that's fine. You can skip it, but make sure you're not talking above them. Make sure you find out what level they're on, and then you explain that process to them. That's a really quick way to lose a buyer, is not thoroughly educating them. Secure the buyer with a loyalty agreement, also known as a buyer's agency agreement. Again, this is optional, but if you can get a buyer to see your value and agree that they are going to commit to you and sign that they are committing to you, that's awesome. And then start scheduling appointments.
So Isaac, I was thinking about that and the buyer's agreement. You know, we've had agents, like myself included now, that have kind of gotten burned by clients that it's a hard market to be a buyer in. And sometimes I feel like if your buyers don't 100% understand the market, they might think that you're the issue. Do you think that it's fair to say, if your clients are interested in working with you and you say, okay, so I'm going to have you sign a buyer's agreement, and they're like, well, what is that? Why do I have to sign it? What would you say?
Well, first off, your question of if it's fair is 100%. It's absolutely fair to ask them to commit to you if you're committing to them. Is it fair? Absolutely. Is life fair? Not always. So if someone were to say that to me, I would try to explain how much work I do for free up front, and how when you go to the grocery store, you don't get your food, go home, eat it, and say, it wasn't good, so I'm not going to pay you. But that's how real estate works. I only get paid if it closes. So subsequently, I'd like you to sign a contract that says you're going to be loyal to me. If that still doesn't work, you have a tough decision. Are you going to roll the dice, or are you going to fire them and move on to the next buyer? So I don't know if that's a great answer, Robin, but yeah, the safest answer is to get them to sign a buyer's agency agreement. And if they don't, you have a much harder decision. So
do you think we could say our office recommends that, or something like, it's our office policy to have clients sign these buyer agreements?
Yeah, absolutely. You can say that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure I'd use the word required, because that's technically dishonest. We don't technically require it, but we request. But that's definitely up to you how you want to go about that. One thing that should be on this slide that is not on this slide is disclose. So we have a disclosure bundle. If you don't have it, feel free to email Rachel, and Rachel will send it to you. But it's a disclosure bundle that has a law of agency. It has, you have the right to a home inspection pamphlet. It has lead-based paint pamphlet, a lot of other things. I'm sorry, I don't remember all them.
Wire fraud,
all that. A lot of times people are like, well, they're only looking at new homes, so I don't need the lead-based paint one. That's fine. You can send them all individually. That's fine. At a minimum, though, what's the one form that you need to send, the one pamphlet you need to send at a minimum right when you start talking to a client?
Law of agency.
Correct, Amundo. 5 points for Gryffindor. law of agency has to be given to your client right when you start working with them. If you're having a conversation with someone who's not committed to being your client or anything like that, you don't have to send it to them right away. But once you start talking to them about buying and stuff, just disclose and do it via email. I mean, give it to them in person, but do it via email so you have a paper trail, right? So you just send, hey, you don't have to sign this. Here's the law of agency, though. I'm required to share this with you when we start talking about real estate. So here it is. If you have any questions about it, let me know. Very, very important.
Isaac?
Yes.
I've been using it as an excuse. So I tell my clients, like, I have these disclosures I have to send you for legal reasons. They're totally standard. But what's cool about this is now you're going to understand how to remote signing works. So I just do it via transaction desk.
That's a great idea. This is
so much easier.
You have to disclose to you. And number two, this is a great practice for learning how our Authentisign works. So when we're in a hurry to get an offer and you're an expert at that point. That's a great idea. Good.
It's worked out really well for me so far.
That's a really good idea. This is when you're in the education process. This is another one. Take a screenshot of this and show them this. Say, so after we found the home and we've written the offer and we've got it in contract right here, this is what it's going to look like. Again, you may not have to do this for a lot of buyers, but some buyers really do not know the process. So explain to them how it works. So once, I wish I had earnest money here. That's a little annoying. But once we get contract, you have to deposit earnest money within 2 days. We also have to do an inspection timeline within X amount of days, depending on what we negotiate. We have to do an inspection and get an inspection response in. At the inspection response, we may skip this, right? We may ask for no repairs. We may ask for closing costs instead of repairs, but explain how that works. Lender, at that point, the lender, we're going to order the appraisal, and the lender is probably going to have additional requirements for you because if you're my buyer and I'm explaining it to you, because to get pre-approved, they need this amount. Now it goes to underwriting, and underwriting needs way more. And they're going to say, well, actually, I need to see, a statement from your Roth IRA. I need, so there's different lender requirements that will come in that time. Potentially, there will be title issues, in which case we'll need addendums or things like that. Also with a set appraisal right here. Then the appraisal comes in, hopefully at value. If it doesn't, that's a whole other situation. Then we close the transaction and you move in. And that's how the transaction works. But having a visual like this is a great idea, and maybe even giving that to them so that they, everyone feels more comfortable if they know where they're going, right? And so if you give them a map, going back to the airplane analogy, I love how these new airplanes have these screens that show a map and where you are on the map. Isn't that so great? It's so, oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. It makes me feel so comfortable.
Coming back from Hawaii, that's the only way you know where you are, because you look out the window and it's like, well, there's the ocean again.
Totally. You're like, I don't know if I'm closer to San Diego or Japan right now. So yeah, no, absolutely. I love the idea of having visuals that you give, especially again, first time home buyers.
So Isaac, if our agents go into the RevUP Dropbox, in there's going to be a file that says social posts. I've actually taken a lot of these slides and put them into Instagram ready frames, so you can share them on social media or download them and send them to your client.
That is so awesome. Yeah, if you guys don't know, Robin has done so much of this. So if you are looking for content like this, just send an email to Robin and Rachel, and they can send you any of this content. I say Rachel too, because Rachel's helping Robin out on this stuff. So, and Robin obviously is so busy. So if you need something really quick, Rachel might be able to get it to you a little quicker as well. So that's awesome. Okay, so step 3, we're going to talk about the representation agreement. So the last part of step 2 in the buyer's consultation, talk yourself up a little bit. This is where you explain what you do. We've already shown them our team. We've educated them. And now we're going to talk about how you're a great negotiator, how you are their advocate. They do not have to go to the seller and negotiate the price, right? You're going to handle that for them. So they can quite literally just stay in the background, and I'm going to be there fighting for you, right? It's like you go to court, you hire an attorney to fight for you. That's what I am. Careful with that. We're not attorneys, but you know what I mean. My job is to help you get through the process and the paperwork quickly and successfully. People hire people all the time for jobs that they probably might be able to do because they want to know that somebody else is going to do it better for them and well for them, and they can just keep going on with their lives knowing that the home buying process is happening in the background. So the last step, the last portion of step 2 is to show them your value, because step 3 is talk about the representation agreement. We already kind of talked about this, but this is a buyer's agency agreement. This is where you I love that line. Loyalty is a two-way street. I'm going to be loyal to you. I'm going to show you homes whenever you want, within reason. I'm going to negotiate my butt off for you. If we have to back out of a transaction, I don't get paid extra because we went through one transaction, didn't close. I get paid the same amount either way. So be loyal to me, okay? Sign this agreement that says I'm going to make a minimum of 2.5% commission. And that actually is a really good point. This is a really good reason why now, as opposed to a year ago or before, it's even more important possibly to have a buyer's agency agreement, because a lot of sellers are being really cheap and only offering to pay 1% or 2%. If you have a buyer's agency agreement, you are locked in 2.5%. Sure, we may have to raise the price for the seller to accept it, but your buyer's already agreed to it. Okay, so really consider, read the buyer's agency agreement and consider practicing with a friend or me or a spouse or whatever, how you would objection handle if somebody were to not want to hire, not want to sign a buyer's agency agreement. This is a script. Let's move to the paperwork that allows me to represent you. I will give you an overview of each section or paragraph. It is actually pretty straightforward, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm sorry, I got mixed up. That is after the buyer's agency agreement, we're going to go into explaining the paperwork. Sorry, my mistake. Okay. Buyer's objections. When a buyer has an objection, whether it's about signing the buyer's agency agreement or anything else, this is the 4 steps to objection handling: investigate, validate, educate, and close. Investigate means try and figure out what is the objection, right? So they don't want to sign a buyer's agency agreement. Okay. Why don't they want to sign a buyer's agency agreement? So hypothetically, they say, I don't want to sign a buyer's agency agreement because I don't know you very well and I don't want to commit to you 100%. So validate. Repeat back to them what they said. Say, oh, I completely understand. So what you're saying is you're nervous that I'm not going to do what I'm saying I'm going to do, and then you're going to be tied into me as your real estate agent, and you'll be working with a bad real estate agent. Yes, that is kind of what I'm saying. Okay, educate them, explain how that's not going to happen. And then lastly, close, get them to sign the buyer's agency agreement. And you can use that for anything, right? We'll talk later about homes and how people have objections about homes. Use the exact same acronym here. That's a horrible acronym, IVEC. Okay. But this is just four things to think about, and in this order, right? Don't forget the validate. Once you find out what the problem is, explain that you understand them, you hear them, I understand what you're saying. Then explain why their concerns are maybe not as big as they think, and then get them to move forward. Okay, step 4 is make showing appointments. Set the expectation up front, meaning explain how it's going to work. Nowadays, people aren't getting in the same car as you. Explain, here's what's going to happen. You're going to send me listings that you want to see. I'm going to schedule the listings, and we're going to meet one by one at all of them. Review the process with them. Communicate. Again, we do this all the time. So to us, it's obvious. To them, this is our first time, oftentimes. Okay. Step 5, arrange the showings using the buyer's 3 lists. Search. Oh my gosh, sorry, I remember now. Using the buyer's lists, search your MLS. So what that is saying is you're going to set them up on an MLS search, and you're going to put in their criteria, their minimum criteria, their wants, and their absolute favorites. That's what they're saying. Do not show more than 6 homes per appointment. I'm not sure I absolutely agree with that. In fact, I'm just going to say I disagree with that.
Okay, Isaac's a maniac though. I have a client that literally likes to spend 30 minutes a showing and 6 homes. We went through 11 last Saturday, and she got real like tired and kind of putzed out around the 9th to 10th home. So I don't know about that.
Depends on your buyer. That's a really good point. Definitely depends on your buyer. But I like to get things done with, and it is a numbers game sometimes. But part of the reason a lot of people will say don't show 6 homes is because I mean, you've all heard the saying that like options are good, but too many options are bad. And it's like, you know, when you go to Starbucks, you have, you know, small, medium, or large, tall, grande, or venti. If they have tall, medium, large, extra large, extra large, and petite, which I guess Starbucks actually kind of does have that now. So bad example. But people start to get overwhelmed. But you want some choices, because if you just, all you can get is a 16 ounce, and people don't like that, right? So, God, I just got to stop with the analogies because I'm just
Your
shooting.
analogies are great today. I love them.
On fire. Okay, I stand by the plane analogy. That was clutch. Anyways, so I do agree with you, Robin. There are probably in many cases showing them too many homes could be a bad thing. These last 2 bullet points I absolutely love. Great in so many different ways. When you have a buyer and in their criteria that they're looking for, you got their price range, minimum bed and bath count, etc., and the location. Send an email out to your clientele that says, hey, everybody, I'm working with a buyer who's looking in Port Ludlow, and they hopefully, actually, I probably will not be working in Port Ludlow. Let's say Port Orchard. Looking in Port Orchard, and they're looking for at least 3 beds and 2 baths, and at least half an acre, and it has to be under 500,000. If you know anybody who's looking to sell in that price range, let me know. And also consider posting on social media. Obviously, keep your buyer's information private. Don't say anything about your buyer specifically, just what they're looking for. Okay, what are the reasons for doing this? Number 1, I tell my buyers I'm going to do this, and they're like, wow, that's super cool. I don't know any other real estate agent who says they're going to do this for me. So if they're interviewing other real estate agents, it separates you from them. Number 2, this is great marketing. It's first off, reminding everybody, just everyone who sees your post is like, oh yeah, I forgot. Ashley is a real estate agent. She's obviously a badass real estate agent because she's posting about this information for her clients. She's going above and beyond. And then lastly, who knows, maybe one of your friends will contact you and say, actually, my neighbor next door does want to sell their home. That would be incredible. It's probably really unlikely, never happened to me, but on the off chance, is it worth doing this? Like, what's the cost of doing this? Practically nothing. What's the benefit? Potentially exponential.
I will say, I don't think it's a great idea to post about what your client is looking for in a buy-sell trade group. Buy-sell trade groups are notoriously, they're full of people that have nothing to do but sit at home all day and be trolls. So if you post about, you know, I'm looking for someone to sell their house for under 400,000 in Tacoma, people are going to come after your whole life. It is not worth it.
That's really funny. You're probably right on that. Okay, showings. So when you're actually at the showing, here are the do's and don'ts. Call ahead or schedule on showing time. Ring and knock, announce yourself, even if it's vacant, just in case. Or if it's, especially if it's not vacant, but you think they're out of there, you still want to ring and knock. And when you go in, you say, hey, Isaac Schaefer, Realty One Group, and just make sure, you know, in case somebody forgot about the showing and they're in the shower, they hear something, they're not shocked. Had that happen to Craig, actually, he had that happen. So that's a funny story. Lead the way initially. Encourage exploration, watch and listen to them, you know, get the verbal feedback and the body language feedback. That was the next bullet point, get feedback. Return the home as you found it, right? This is, I'm finding this with buyers who have little kids, you know, make sure they're not playing with the other family's toys and stuff. And if they do touch something, put it right back where it was. And then leave your business card. You don't have to do that technically during COVID. Do not accompany the buyer into every room. What they mean by that, obviously, is don't just give them some space. Let them breathe. Let them talk about it. If it's a couple or whatever, like give them a little freedom there. Don't state the obvious. Don't disagree with them. Don't defend the property. That's a big one, right? Don't if they're not liking a home, don't try and convince them to buy the home. There's other homes out there, right? Don't skip a home because you don't think it's what they want, right? Just if they say they want it, stick with it. Don't set up more showings until the buyer has eliminated this one from consideration. That's an interesting one that we could probably dwell on for a little bit, but the idea is if someone really likes a home and they want to see one home that they are telling you, wow, we're really crazy about this one, maybe don't set up 5 more showings after it. Let's focus on this home. They're already really emotional about it. Okay, step 6, each property considered or eliminated. So ask questions as you go. If there were no more homes to see, which one would you choose and why? That's a great question to ask. Make them kind of put some urgency on it. Advantages to this approach are you show fewer homes, which is always nice. You push it forward, make it help them come to an easy decision, and then probably most importantly, you know if their criteria has changed, because maybe they're saying, yeah, we keep looking at these 3-bedroom homes, and we just realized we need 4 bedrooms. Great, that's perfect. Now I know, and now I'm not going to waste my time showing more 3-bedroom homes. That's probably the most important part of that. Okay, step 7, 7A, property selection. So spot buying signals. This is what I was talking about earlier. Watch them for their nonverbal cues and their verbal cues. If they, oh my gosh, we love this bathroom. Oh, we love this kitchen, right? Try and read what they're saying and repeat it back to them, or read what they're not saying, repeat it back to them and be like, you guys clearly love this home. We're not trying to push a buyer into buying a home that they don't want, but if they want a home, try and help them not overthink it. That's kind of the idea there. Ask trial closing questions. Will your armoire fit here? I'm glad I went through these slides ahead of time, because it took me a second to realize that word was armoire. I don't know why it took me a second, but it did. Is this room, would this be the room for your son? The idea of this is try and get them to visualize living there. And then ask closing questions. Are you ready to make an offer, right? That's just like we talked about when you're interviewing buyers, try and get them to sign the buyer's agency agreement. Now we're trying to get them to write an offer. Don't overthink it, especially in this hot market. If you like the home and you're ready to write an offer, write the offer. And 7B, revise the criteria. We already talked about this. Revise the criteria if they don't want to, right? Again, we already used the example. Yeah, we just aren't into 3 bedrooms won't work. Okay, perfect. Now I'm only going to show you homes with 4 bedrooms. We're good. But if they don't want to write an offer on a home that clearly seems to meet all their criteria, figure out why they don't want to, and then don't show them a home like that again. Okay, so that's the first half of the meeting. The second half is all about getting your offer accepted. Again, this is the part that I really encourage you to go back and watch our previous Tech Tuesday, where we discussed getting your offers accepted in a hot market. So again, this is more generic and evergreen. So the key areas of an offer are what's their financing, FHA, VA, conventional, or cash. If it is financed, what is the down payment? Inspections, are we going to have an inspection? Are we going to do a pre-inspection, or are we going to waive the inspection? Repairs, are we going to ask them upfront for any repairs or conditions? Review the property disclosure, the Form 17 that should be uploaded in supplements. Make sure they are aware of everything and they have no concerns. And then environmental disclosures. This is where you want to figure out from the listing broker if there, is the property on wetlands, does it require flood insurance, anything like that. I actually had a buyer call me a few years ago and say, hey, yeah, we're interested in this home. It was like a total cold sign call. And they said, and he's like, but I have one major concern. I was like, what's that? He's like, if Mount Rainier goes off, would this home be okay? It was really hard for me not to laugh. It was in Enumclaw. So I said, I don't know. That you'd have to ask an expert on that, because I'm not a Lahar Zone expert.
You can look it up online. I've done that before to see like where the lahars would fall and compared it to property maps.
Okay, but let's be honest. If you're buying in the Puget Sound, it's not going to be good if Mount Rainier goes off. I guess I guess I should be careful before I make jokes at other people's expense.
You're fine.
I thought it was pretty funny. Okay, step 8. I got turned around. So we already were on step 8. Offers made and negotiated. Okay, I'm caught back up. Here we go. So I talk to buyers about this all the time, where there's like, you can't have everything, most likely, unless you are very, very wealthy. You know, we talk about like, hey, better location, you're going to pay a higher price. Lesser location, you'll probably get more home, right? So same type of thing here. And especially in a hot market, if you want better terms, such as seller paying my closing costs, or seller making repairs, or seller including the washer and dryer that they said they weren't including, you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is. That's just how it works, especially in a hot market like this. I love this idea. I don't do it nearly enough. I have in the past, but it's really helpful when you're a listing agent. Instead of getting an offer that just says, hey, see attached, let me know if you have any questions. Again, I do that all the time, which I probably shouldn't. But writing a quick little letter that says, hey, here's my buyer's offer. They absolutely love the home. It's a purchase price of $212. Down payment is 10%. Conventional financing, X amount of days on the inspection, etc. It's really helpful, and it's just one little thing you can do to help your buyer potentially get the home by letting the agent know that you're a good agent to work with. So let's talk about tips for communication with the listing agent. Call, email, text. If they have a transaction coordinator, always CC their transaction coordinator. It's very frustrating working with a transaction coordinator myself, and people send things to me and I have to forward it to my TC, and I've asked them to send it to my TC. So that's an easy way that you can appease them. And then check the MLS for instructions on how they want communication to be. A lot of people put things in the broker remarks like, please CC my co-listing broker or whatever. So handling difficult agents. This is very common recently, I feel like. Look at the big picture. Who do I represent? Remember that this is not a battle against seller versus buyer, listing broker versus buyer's broker. This is a win-win situation, hopefully, right? The seller, the listing broker, the buyer's agent, and the buyer all want the same thing. They want this deal to close. So remember that, right? Don't go to war over your ego. Be humble and do what it takes to get your offer accepted or get the deal done. Do I want to be right or do I want to get paid? I want to get paid. Okay, handling difficult buyers. Again, do I want to get paid? Is the question that you want to have at the forefront of your mind. So remember, leave your ego at the door. If your buyers are being difficult, try and handle it. And don't take offense. Everything's business, not personal. And try and put your feelings to the side. With that said, if you followed the steps that we talked about before, dealing with trying to only work with qualified, reasonable buyers, you probably won't have to deal with this. But if you are working with a buyer who's difficult and is unreasonable and disrespectful or whatever you want, you have the right to fire them. So don't be afraid to do that. If you do have questions about that, let me know. I have fired 2 buyers before and it felt great. So anyways, that is always an option. This is a good thing to educate your buyers on, understanding inventory. So this is their metric. They're saying if there's less than 5 months inventory, it's a seller's market. 6 months inventory is a balanced market, and 7 to 12 is a buyer's market. This is not necessarily a science, but let's use now as an example, show them how many listings are on the market. Then show them how many listings are currently on the market in the area they're looking for with the criteria they're looking for. Probably not many, right? Like maybe 2 to 8 ever at a time. Show them that and remind them that there are more than 2 or 8 buyers who are looking for the same criteria in the same area. That's really helpful when you're meeting with a buyer, to show them up front what the inventory is like for the homes they're looking for, so that they realize, oh, I'm not unique. The seller's unique. The seller has all the power. I don't say this to scare them away. I just say this so that they don't go into a transaction thinking, well, I only buy homes that are 5% off. Good luck. Does that make sense? So show them the inventory ahead of time and say, I'm not discouraging you. I'm just saying, if we are going to get an offer accepted in this hot market, you're going to have to be aggressive, period. After you've written the offer, it says in person, deliver it in person. That's the most effective. I think that would be incredibly weird, and I don't think I've ever seen someone do that. So let's skip that. Really, really important when you deliver the contract by email to constitute delivery. This says this on the Form 21. It has to be delivered to the other broker, the other brokerage, and our brokerage. That constitutes delivery. If you skip one of those three, it is not technically delivered, and the listing broker does not actually technically have to share it with his client. So with anything, whether it's an initial offer or negotiation throughout the transaction, be sure to deliver it properly. What time are we? Oh, we're good. We're good. Okay. Once you get your offer accepted, yay, make sure you send copies of the transaction to title and escrow, the buyer's agent, the seller's agent, the selling brokerage, your brokerage, and the lender. Really important to send it out to all those people, so that, because if you don't send it, if you forget to send it to the lender has no idea that you're pending. I see that I've had this happen multiple times where someone, like 2 weeks into the transaction, the lender is like, guys, I never got this. And so they didn't order the appraisal, and it pushes everything behind. So send a nice mutual acceptance email, which transaction coordinator would handle. But if you haven't done it before, it's just a letter that says, congrats, we have mutual acceptance. Here's all the details of the transaction. Let me know if you have any questions. Our inspection is scheduled for this date. Important, do not send it to the other agent's client. You are not allowed to, and that can be a fine. Always advise buyer to verify wiring instructions prior to making earnest money deposit. Really important. If I just always tell my buyers, if you feel fishy about it, just hang up and call the escrow company and say, hey, I just want to make sure this is really you. We've already gone through this, so that's a duplicate slide. We are going to skip 10 because we've already talked about it. Okay, step 11. So we've gotten past the inspection. The lender is going to send loan docs to the buyer, prepare the buyer for this, and let them know to be ready for this and expecting this. And when you get an email from your lender, get on it right away. If they need information, you need to get it to them right away so we don't delay closing. Arrange for your buyer to preview loan documents in advance. That's when you can review the closing costs so that they're not surprised by that. And I'm going to add a bonus item here. Always remind your buyers to not go buy a car or a washer on credit, because that could lower their credit score, which could mean they don't qualify for the home, or less awful, but still bad, they have a higher interest rate, which would not be good. They're saying to, when the buyer signs, to be with the buyer at the signing appointment. I've actually never done that. I don't think you have to do it. And frankly, what I say is this is what you pay escrow for, and escrow is the expert on what you're signing. So if you have any questions, talk to the escrow officer who is signing you. So that's up to you, obviously. But I always tell my clients that if you have any questions and you're having trouble, I will be available by phone. Okay, we're almost done. Step 13, the funds are released and the sale is recorded. One really important asterisk here, because the market has been so hot, we're having so many closings every day. Some transactions have been funded and released to record, and they don't record that day because they have such a huge stack of recordings to file. They literally don't get to it that day. So there is a new form, Does anybody want to help me out? What's the new form about delayed recording?
I do not remember. I'm sorry.
I can't remember. We'll include that in the recap email, but there's a new form that you can add if you would like, and I think it is very prudent to do this, that says, hey, if the property is released to record and funded, but it doesn't quite record, we're still going to say closing was that day, so that your buyer who has their moving truck all packed can start moving in that night if they want to, okay? So there's a form for that now, and you should consider doing that. Okay, step 14, the final step, the buyer takes possession of the home. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. And again, this is probably the most important part in separating yourself as a very, very successful real estate agent. This is where you make a client for life. Well, this is where you complete that, because you've earned it throughout the transaction, but now you want to ask them if they have any referrals, anybody else they know who has questions about real estate. This is where you want to, in my opinion, give them, along with the keys and the garage remote and all that, you want to give them a nice gift. It doesn't have to be a super expensive gift, but a really thoughtful gift. Robin's the queen of that. If you have questions about giving thoughtful gifts, talk to Robin. It's actually kind of weird how good she is at it. I'm not joking. And then stay in touch with them. We're going to talk about this in later meetings about making clients for life, but I follow up with them a week later. How's everything going? Any questions, any concerns, anything I can do for you? If you bought them a home warranty or they got a home warranty from the seller, make sure you give them a printed out copy of the home warranty and what they have to do if there's a problem. Remind them this is who you call if there's a problem, because if you fix it and then you call the home warranty company, you won't get any money. But just put yourself in the position of your buyer. They're so overwhelmed, they're moving, they're stressed, their kids are moving schools and so on. Try and be there as a support. That's everything, guys. As always, we conclude RevUp by encouraging you to form a one habit. The one habit is making 3 phone calls, adding 3 people to your database, and sending out 6 handwritten notes, or at least text or emails, to your to people at least once a working day. And the idea is, again, shotgun approach. If you continue to do this minimum 1 habit every single day, it will work. I promise. It just sometimes takes a while. Thank you all for joining. That was fun.